Here we go. I think that I am, and with the mic, just this little, easiest point to move it by is just there, and keep it relatively close. Like you can hear my voice now.
Yeah, quite clearly.
Yeah,
How's
sound
that?
good. That's good. So just keep it. If you sit back like this, you can hear it drops off. So if you think of it, you just keep it relatively close, and you get nice sound coming out.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I've become more conscious or aware of my thinking in the last, I'd say 5 years, something like that.
Yeah, so that time frame sounds about right for me too. But then, do you ask the question why?
I'm going to give an explanation for part of the reason, and people probably won't like it, but I've got to say Jordan Peterson, to some extent, is I think part of the reason that I've become more focused on my own critical thinking because of watching some of his lectures on YouTube, a few years ago, and going, okay, this guy clearly spends a lot of time thinking about things, and if I follow him on some of his paths, I get it, I follow, and I agree on some of these topics. And that actually stuck with me a little bit. I was like, you're a 50-year-old man. You need to be thinking seriously, not just drifting around through the day. And
Yeah, but that's his gig though. So I've heard a couple of his podcasts.
Yeah.
So there was one interesting one at the moment. I don't know whether this is a conversation for recording or not, but his whole critical thinking around Ukraine and Russia. Like,
was that the Piers Morgan interview just the other day?
I can't recall, but it did resonate with me. And then you take a step back and you go, well, why? Because
I think a couple of months ago, he released a video talking about the Ukraine, and he gave three reasons. He was like three possible reasons for what Putin is doing. And I didn't see that, but I heard him later on talking about that video which he'd given. And he was saying how he had just copped so much flack. And everyone was saying, you're a Putin sympathizer.
Exactly, that's the thing. You're not allowed to have an opinion.
No.
If your opinion differs from what my opinion is, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I suppose where I'm at the moment, this could be the whole middle-aged cynic thing, is, you know what? I'm a bit cautious of mainstream opinion, and I don't want to just toe the line without doing my own little piece of work, because it's not hard to do a bit of searching to validate your thinking, yeah?
Yeah.
So then you kind of go Google, because Mr. Google knows everything, as long as you validate Mr. Google. Could be Miss Google. You go, well, what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, and is it logical? Because on the surface, it seems highly illogical, and therefore, if something's highly illogical, it suggests that I don't understand enough of it. And therefore, I'm open to be polarized. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll try and do some digging on it. I had a really, really good discussion with a friend of mine a few months ago about the Ukraine-Russia situation.
Yeah.
And it was primarily around the why has Putin gone in there. And we had very different opinions. Her opinion was very much he's trying to reconquer and take over the Ukraine entirely and extend beyond there and reestablish like the USSR and the mighty mother Russia. Whereas I was of the opinion like, no, for years, he's been saying, NATO, just stop pushing into the Ukraine, keep it as a buffer, and we're good. And he's pushing back due to the continued NATO training of the Ukrainian supply of arms. And to me, that feels like the Occam's razor. That's the simple solution to that.
Sometimes the simplest answer is the answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I suppose that's what I've come across too. Yeah. So in 2014, there was a denuclearization treaty or whatever signed, and they said, hey, on the back of this, we're going to disestablish some of our nukes, 2014, 2007, whatever it was. So they held their part of the bargain, and then the alternate was, hey, our sovereignty and our border safety needs to be taken into consideration. You're not going to push into our borders.
Yeah.
Next thing, you've got Poland that's joined NATO, and was it Belarus or a couple other countries, and then Ukraine was too strategic for them. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but that whole where the conversation came about, because you go, well, sometimes you just get fed stuff And you've got to dig a wee bit deeper to go, well...
It's really easy, isn't it? Just to hear what's on the on the 6 o'clock news. Okay, and that's it. And this is a different thing too. As a kid and growing up, we only had the 6 o'clock news, and so our parents have always had the 6 o'clock news, and I see people of my parents' generation, of some of them anyhow, who still only really have the 6 o'clock news as their news source.
Yeah.
And I rarely, if ever, watch the 6 o'clock news. But when I do go back to it, it blows my mind at how polarized it is in one direction, and that there's just other information which I've resourced from another number of places just doesn't get a mention on there. You don't.
So on one hand, you kind of go, well, today I'm so open to being manipulated in my views and my thoughts, depending on what feed I get and what I search, I can get trained into a belief system.
Yeah.
So then you're right. When it was only Channel 1 news at 6 p.m. or then Prime came along at 5:30, what you got fed was what you got fed. You didn't go wider than that. It wasn't a social feed saying, hey,
no. We didn't have Twitter then. And it's still, and my parents, well, maybe I've convinced them now to have Twitter, but it's not something they naturally found. I didn't find easily, and that for me is an amazing news source. Even though it's heavily pushed to the left, you can still seek out a broad spectrum of opinions on Twitter.
You can, but you're very algo-led in Twitter too, yeah? So what I search is what I get fed.
Yes.
Yeah? Yep. And my bias is what gets supported over time. So then I've got to constantly be aware that I've got to change my...
Do you follow people that you disagree with, that you're openly ideologically opposed to?
I love talking to people that have a different opinion to myself, because I often go, well, I'm not correct.
Yeah.
So I need to talk to people that don't have the same thought process as me. I need to talk to alternates.
That's such a great way to think.
Yeah.
And I think it really is a way to move forward with your thinking, because that way you just don't get stuck in this right-hand turn or this left-hand turn forever. You can go forward. You get a bit of balance.
But you can only mature your thought process by having alternate views, challenging
it. Yeah.
I caught up with a friend. So I've got this thing, like New Zealand's been destroyed under Labour, and we're debt laden and all those sorts of things, and our health response was really shit, and we've really, I'm not happy with this.
Yeah.
So I caught up with someone, and always respected this person, and huge brain, and he's very well read and kind of very wide in his understanding. And then I said, it's kind of, here's this free money that we were given, and I'd be stupid not to take it, so I took some of it and all that sort of stuff. He goes, but do you realise that even with all this free money, we, as a result of our COVID response, we still have got some of the lowest debt to GDP in any of the Western development.
So we didn't get in so badly with the money printing, but still.
I know, but in my view, she's evil.
Yeah.
And she's the Antichrist and all those sorts of things. And you feed me anything that validates and supports my view, and I'm listening to it, and you're a good guy.
Yeah.
So then you go, well, actually, no, I'm really enjoying catching up with this guy, because he had an alternate view, but he was intelligent enough to support his alternate view with facts that then challenged my bias. Yeah.
And which is good. And it may not change your opinion entirely on the situation, but it might be enough to go, okay, I'm not going to get too pushed this way, because I can see, okay, there are some other things that will pull my opinion back, and which again stops you then maybe getting to that position where you become very defensive of a particular view because it's just come emotional for you. You're less like that, because you go, look, I still can see both sides a little bit. Yep, okay, so we've got low debt to GDP. Fair enough, grant you that. So it's not as bad as maybe I thought it might have been.
Yeah. Well, because my other thing was, I had this view that partly the fault of our health system is that it's being run by practitioners. Yeah, so I was a surgeon, and now I'm, running as the administrator for the surgical centres or whatever it be. And he kind of pointed out, well, actually, no, some of the practitioners that we have that have turned into administrators are some of the best administrators. They gave us some good logical examples, but I found it really, really good having that conversation, because it challenged these thoughts and biases that I've had for a long period of time that have gone unchallenged. So then to have an alternate view, kind of go, well, actually, no, you're talking shit.
Yeah.
Was really good.
It's a tough thing to accept, that when you get challenged, when someone backs it up with facts, because then you've actually got to go, okay, I'm going to allow myself to rethink here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to accept this new information in and change the way I think and the way I feel about something. And change at that level is a tough thing for people to do. A lot of people, you give them really good information backed up with solid facts and they'll just go, no. They just will fight harder rather than going, yeah, okay, I can see that. I need to change the way I think of my position.
Yeah, but so then you go, well, what is that? Is that my need to be right? And then, well, what is my need to be right? Is it to be correct or to actually be backed by fact? Like our biases get so in the way of incorrect rightness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't accept information that can be staring you in the face because I'm so committed to being right.
There's a guy, Ryan Chapman, on YouTube. He's got a great channel, Ryan Chapman. He did a video recently on why do people believe things that are not true. Mm-hmm. And it was he proposed this theory really well, where we are in an age where we are given so much information and so many ideas that the ideas that are marketed and look pretty and sound good to us and reaffirm things that we like are the ideas we will naturally pick out of the crop, because there's a whole heap of ideas coming at me. Well, I like the sound of that one. Maybe it's familiar with my original thinking. And so you get that bias because you start to believe things that are in your sweet spot and feel good, actually probably give you a bit of a dopamine hit. It's like, that's reassuring. And that's why he went through it in logical detail as to why people will believe things that are incorrect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's your biases, isn't it?
But the thing is, we need to feel present and existent, and therefore we need to kind of go, well, even if I don't have an opinion, I need to have a position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. It's really hard to, in a conversation, go, I've got no idea what we're talking about. I'll just say nothing. Yeah.
Well, excuse me. So I think, my finding over the last several years is because we have such a need to feel part of a opinion that we take a position, and sometimes, I find myself quite lazy to actually go, well, what's my reason for taking this position?
Oh, yeah. It's tough to actually have the time to think and research all of the topics that will come up that you will talk to, with people. You go out for dinner, you talk, someone says, oh, and what about this? What do you think? Christopher Luxon. I'm like, I've only spent 15 minutes listening to him. I really don't know, but you'll have an opinion now.
Yeah. The so-called savior.
Yeah.
He's quite a boring dude.
Yeah.
But and for that reason, I've been quite disinterested in finding out any. But yet I hate the opposition. So,
that's the great way to be. If that was your response, people would actually love you, because that's the authentic position. But we rarely do that, I think. Generally, you're like, I'm not sure. Or you just fall back onto, he's with that party, so it's probably my position is that he's like this.
Yes. We had this preconception about him, that he's going to be the face of change for the party, and the party's now going to have a certain position and certain presence, and it will be able to represent the view that's not being represented at the moment. But it didn't happen. So
I did hear him being interviewed on what's the platform? The other day, and the guy on the platform, I don't know his name. I should, but he's a very aggressive interviewer. He asks his questions. He talks over people. He doesn't let them really get away with things. But I thought Luxon did a good job with that interview. He didn't. A couple of times he tried the whole political, I'll just swim around this and not really give the answer. And the interview was great. He just said, but the question I asked you was, do you feel that? And he was pretty good. He was like, I feel this or I feel that.
In fairness, you're more likely to get an answer from Luxon, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But New Zealand politics are so boring.
Yeah.
But you're more likely to get an answer out of him from what I've seen than you are from the current PM, yeah?
Yeah, I would agree.
So then you go, well, I've got to respect that.
Yeah.
He doesn't weave away from it. He may not be elegant, but he doesn't weave away from it.
That's what I came away with after listening to this too, was that, you ask him, he'll get an answer from him.
Yeah.
And obviously he knows some of the answers, aren't going to be great from him. He answered the question around, transgender and should biological men be allowed to play sports with women and that sort of thing. And he answered it and basically said, look, I don't think that they should.
What was his position? Yeah, okay.
His position was he didn't really think that men should be playing in women's sports, but wasn't for the government to decide. It was for the sporting bodies to decide. So that was a fair enough answer. He sort of palmed it off, as you would expect, but he give his own opinion on it.
Yeah.
Was, that, look, they're men. They shouldn't be playing sport with women. There's whole range of things to consider, safety for people and all that sort of thing, which I thought was just a conservative mainstream approach, but logical.
But respectable, yeah?
Yeah.
So you kind of go, governance is not about you interfering in people's lives.
Yeah.
It's about providing governance.
Yeah.
And so whether men should play in women's sports, it's logical to me.
Yeah.
Let the sporting body decide and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got that, obviously, he's national, so you'd hope so, but he's got that conservative small government approach. And one of the other points he mentioned was the extra 17,000 or 27% increase in public servants under Labor.
Yeah.
And you're starting to think, well, are we getting 27% more services of quality out of the government that requires all these additional people working in the government?
Yeah, I hear that, and yes, it seems to have swelled. But then you go, well, I can't see the new government coming in and saying I'm gonna cut my own peeps.
Yeah.
So you can't.
It's tough to do once they're there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But maybe that we're about to embark on what would be a economic turn where they are left with no choice. So all the swelling that we've had may result in cutbacks. Yeah.
It would be a historic prime ministership if he got in, and he did that. Actually made change. Tough thing to do. You've only got your 3 or 4 year term.
Yeah, well, but also I believe that the next governance that gets in, they're not going to get the free run that Labor had in this term.
Yeah.
So they're going to get a whole bunch of handbrakes around them, whether that be through National Act or whatever the partnership ends up being. I think this free run that Labor's had is possibly where the issues have come up from. Kind of take a step back, you go, yeah. In theory, before we saw a government have free run at something, we thought, that's the way it should be. A government should be able to go in there and make a whole bunch of policy changes and implement a whole sort of a bunch of community good policies and go fill your boots. And now we're seeing it happen. We're going, actually, I don't identify with that.
Yeah.
And that's not to my benefit. And I like handbrakes. Bring back Winnie, Yeah.
Well, that's the point, I suppose, of these two-party setups that we've got, is hopefully you do get a bit of that. You don't get someone just running away with their ideological direction, because that's the problem. Again, someone I was talking to the other day, they were like, well, yes, you've got short terms, and that makes decision-making short-sighted because you want to try and get re-elected. So you're not going to do the big piece of work to strategically set you up for 12 or 20 years down the track if it looks bad now and you might lose the next election. Tough situation. But then you turn around the other way and you say, okay, put someone in for 20 years. It's like, well, that's great if you like the person you've got for 20 years and they're heading in the right direction. Otherwise, it's dreadful.
Then you go, well, we've got China there.
We leave the country.
Yeah, you've got China there doing that.
Yeah.
And then, as a bystander, you look at it and you go, well, actually, I don't agree with that either. So then you go, well, are we just designed to be disappointed with whatever the outcome is?
I don't think that there's a perfect system for governance. I think it's got to be something that flexes. That's the problem. We try to put it into one model, and that will work. Yeah. Whereas, people say, communism, it's much better, and capitalism, it's much better. Well, I don't think either of them are perfect, but under capitalism, for quite a while now, last couple of 100 years effectively, lots of people have done well. There's less poverty around the world.
Yep, agree with that. Yeah, but is it time for change though? Yeah. So there's a book that I keep kind of going back to called The Fourth Turning, guy Neil Howe, and basically was saying cycles in civilizations have got powers have got terms, and terms are decided by where that ruling demographic is at that time. So generally they're between 80 to 100 years, and then there's a change in guard, so to say. And you go through a time where, it's not about negotiating. It's about just getting shit done.
Yeah.
So we do that. And then there's a time where you just enjoy the fruits of all that labor, and she's good times. We've kind of been through that. And then there's a time where people go, you know what? Enough's enough. I need a bit of an awakening, and I want to do social good. And people start getting a whole lot more annoyed or a bit pissed off and a bit more voicey because it's not all milk and honey anymore. And it seems to be we're in that time at the moment, and it concludes with generally some level of conflict because the discontent comes to a head.
Yeah.
So it feels like we're kind of going through that cycle at the moment.
The last couple of years, there has been an amazing change in the Western world in terms of just the lockdowns, just that government-led massive change in the way everyone lives. You know, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, still Trudeau, man, he's just got tight control on that country.
What's the basis of it all? You know, like, I like to think I'm not the cleverest guy in the room, but there's sufficient logic to me to work things out. And you go, well, I can't work it out. And then also China with the lockdowns that it's gone through recently. It's highly logical. I think I read a number of like 120 million people in all that were affected by the last lockdown. It was three major cities or something got affected by it. Don't know.
Yeah, I had read that Jinping was in the position where he couldn't lose face because he'd committed to a zero COVID stance. And so if COVID keeps on popping up, he's got to be seen to be doing something. Otherwise, it looks like a failure for him until he can find a way to come out and say, now I've changed my mind and we're okay with COVID. That's when their lockdowns will stop.
Yeah, so I don't know whether they're still in lockdowns or not, but there was an interesting Twitter, because you're a Twitter guy too. So yesterday, it was going nuts with Xi Jinping. There's a coup in China at the moment and all the air traffic things. There's no flights over Beijing at the moment, and the tickets, the fast train tickets have all been cancelled and so on. So then you go, oh, could this be true? I don't know. It still hasn't been validated or disproved. But then you go, well, what's the next question that comes to mind? So if Xi Jinping's not the man in charge, who's the next dude? And is it the better the devil you know? Because you've kind of examined this guy for the last 20 years and you've seen his actions, and he's quite diplomatic, really, on the international stage.
Yeah,
he doesn't come across as a monster as such.
No.
Then you go, well, who's the new guy?
Yeah.
If it does happen, what do they bring to the party?
Yeah, well, I think they're gonna continue to crack down, because I think that the way that they have adopted and enabled a level of capitalism over the last 20 years. They've got like private industry. You've got Jack Ma leading massive organisations like that.
Yeah.
I think they've seen the danger to their communist rule with that is that if they let people like Jack Ma get money and become powerful, he gets a voice on the global stage. If he starts to say things that aren't great for the CCP, suddenly, they're stuck. They need to grow. They need to allow capitalism in. But if they're not careful, they'll end up with a whole heap of Jeff Bezos's and Elon Musk's and Jack Ma's competing against them, and the general public's buying their products, and suddenly they're going to lose control, and they have to have control.
Yeah, because their social is far more developed than the Western social.
I've heard that. I don't use any of it, but I've heard that. Yeah.
So it's a lot more integrated. The platform seems to, there's only a handful of platforms, and they've pretty much got all users subscribe to this, and they're not using it for, whether it be commerce or social or payment or whatever it be, and it's all reasonably integrated. So you talk to a mid-20 Chinese person, and they go, well, shucks, our technology is actually behind what they have gotten used to and how they engage.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't. I've got WeChat. I've had a look at WeChat, and I've had a look at some of their e-commerce platforms.
Pretty good.
I don't know. Well, there's a bit of a reading barrier and all that sort of stuff, and how I use it and how it's being used over there. But the 25-year-olds had the opportunity to see both theirs and ours, and they reckon it's more sophisticated.
Yeah,
so,
that's something that I have heard from a couple of people.
Yeah.
And the integration part is great because the apps will be good, but then you've got the challenge where if you get the social credit score systems coming in and suddenly your app turns off, and you're using your app for everything. It's for your payments, you're paying your rent through it, you're traveling on it, and for whatever reason that's being turned off. It's like, well, how do I buy food?
Yeah, but
tough.
I suppose where the thought that went through my head is if you've got a whole bunch of platforms that's connecting your community together, and there's only a handful of those whole bunch, it's a whole lot easier to control your community.
Yeah.
So then social credit systems and so on are a whole lot easier to administer if you've only got a handful of platforms that everyone's already connected to.
Yeah. That's the challenge with Twitter. Twitter being so left-leaning at the moment and just cancelling people that they don't like because they said something they didn't like. Yeah, that's a great example of just being really easy to control that one major platform. If there was another Twitter, which is of equal size, then they'd be in a position like, well, we can't do this. We're going to lose too many followers. YouTube, because of TikTok, YouTube have just announced the first change to their creator program in the last 4 years. And everybody thought they were going to reduce the barriers for creators to become monetized. Because like I was saying before, if you want to become monetized, you've got to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours within the last 12 months. And everyone's like, yay, they're going to make it easier. But no, they didn't. That stayed the same. What they've done is now said, with our shorts format. So on YouTube, you got long format, but then if you scroll through on the app, you get the little shorts, like less than a minute kind of things. Yeah. That's what TikTok's about, and YouTube is losing creators to TikTok because they're going over there, they're getting monetized over there. So YouTube has now just said, right, because it's a competition, we're going to let you guys make money off shorts now. We'll start that in 2023. Please don't go.
That's incredible. So I didn't know that background, but shorts have gone crazy on YouTube, yeah? So with my little ones, Chesky's 9, 10. Yeah. The evening processes, we kind of go through some shorts and find some funny content or cooking bomb or whatever it be, and you go through that. But now the options in shorts has just gone nuts.
Yeah, and that's a competition driven. That's because they're losing people to TikTok.
And they can monetize it. Yeah, is the driver behind content.
Which I haven't done previously, and they're now doing that. So they're going to give you 45% of the ad revenue to the creators of the shorts. And they've got some challenge around it. The number's lower than people had expected, but they believe that's because with shorts, the ad isn't part of your video. If I've got this video up here and it goes for an hour and a half, then if an ad shows halfway through it, that ad's related to this video. But with shorts, you show a short, you show another short, you show another short, then you show an ad. Yeah. Well, who do you pay? And so what they're going to do is break it out. There might be one ad every 5 shorts, and if that ad gets watched, that will then be shared by those across those 5 creators that way. But it's a monstrous number to get monetized for shorts. You need to have 10 million views of your shorts within 90 days.
That is pretty insane. But then also, if you then reflect to how we consume shorts. We scan through, so we may not even get to the end of the short. Oh, so you can see how that number gets hit.
Yeah. They're brutal. Shorts, you have to in the first 2 seconds. Engage the person. Any longer than that, you're like, no, next one. There's just so much content there. If you don't get me,
don't you find that so clever though? Like just understanding how these drivers get. How to manipulate people's eyeballs or people as a driver. You kind of go, well, how do I capture that person from not flicking through my short? Yeah. Because I need 10 million of those eyeballs before I make a buck out of this. Yeah.
And that's why you get so much of the clickbaity content out there. The great fails of 2022, and the picture on the front is this big-breasted girl about to fall over, and if you watch the video, she never turns up in the video, but that's what gets you to click on it to begin with. It's that clickbait, because I've got to get people to click on this thing.
Yeah. Hey, do you recall, I think we were both at kind of that whole telecom thing together, with Advanced Solutions, and we had someone come talk to us, someone of relevance, and they said, there'll be a time when it won't be about quality of the content because we're all going into that whole HDMI high def.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So we're talking about 1080p and all that sort of stuff, and really high quality production, and how it costs a whole bunch of money to make this sort of content. And that pitch, it wasn't a pitch. It was just one of those kind of here's a sales staff growth motivational day, whatever it be. And this person's pitch was, no, it's all going to be about content. It's going to be about quick to generate content and a whole bunch of abundance of it. It's not going to be about quality, and you're going to be able to have content relevant to the user, whereas at the moment, the way content's created is, whether that's your interest or not, I'm going to go wide so I can catch as much of the audience as possible. Whereas, and this was back in 2000 or whatever it be, 2005 or whatever. So his thing was, no, actually content is going to be quite segmented and quite targeted, and it's not going to be about quality anymore. It's just going to be about frequency and topic, and just get it out there. And his pitch was, it's going to be on devices, and people are going to walk around with their content rather than sit in front of a TV and soak up content. I didn't believe it.
Yeah, I'd say I remember reading people saying, you will consume more on your mobile phone than you do on your laptop, and I'm like, no way.
It didn't soak in.
Yeah.
Whereas now you'd go, well,
yeah,
I don't believe something different. So a couple of years back, this conversation goes, well, what's going to be the next version of the internet? What's going to happen? And then apps were going nuts. Apps still are going nuts. So then what came out of that was we've got to have a way to dashboard all this, so you don't have 1,000 apps delivering you 1,000 different pieces of unique information. Somehow you got to aggregate that into a dashboard and then present it that way. A couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, whatever it be, talking to someone, he goes, well, that's actually already happened. But what we got trained to believe was it was
an app, but it was the device. It's the phone. Yeah.
Incredible, eh?
Yeah. Amazing. I heard a CIA guy a while ago going, if back in the 70s, we were tasked with trying to figure out how to how to track people. And then mobile phones came along and we didn't have to do anything. They track themselves. They carry the tracking devices with them 24/7 everywhere they go. And you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That whole, you are the product.
To the point where I even volunteer where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
So I get the benefit of free stuff.
Yeah.
Like coming over today, Google Maps.
Yeah.
Congestion time, travel time, all of that sort of stuff pre-worked out for me. So on one hand, I'm kind of volunteering my whereabouts to get the benefit, but we'd never,
No, I had never thought that like a side effect of Google having your phones and that would be exactly that. The traffic data that they get purely by the fact that they know that there's a phone going up that roadway and there's lots of phones going up that roadway and they're going slowly. We'll make that a black line on the graph then on the map.
Yeah.
Great data.
Yeah. So there was a podcast I was listening to. It wasn't a podcast, it was a YouTube 10-minute segment. While you're driving, that's what you do. You play a whole bunch of YouTubes through your car.
Line them up, play next, watch later, start, go.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So this one was about how Google has planted its artificial brain into a robot, and the evolution of AI, something you mentioned earlier, is it's now here and now. And I think what they had the whole conversation that you had artificial narrow intelligence and artificial general intelligence. And so this was an example of them actually planting their brain into general intelligence. So, and then it showed you I think what was the statement over here? Hey, whatever the robot's name was, spilled water. So then generally the database goes, okay, well, what's happened? Spilled water. Would you like a mop? Would you like a rag? All that sort of stuff. But they were the robot sophisticated enough to take the feed, going, I don't see a mop here. So what do I do next?
Right.
So the algorithms become so much more developed to go, okay, well, I'm going to now put into actions that are achievable. Yeah.
Context awareness.
Yeah.
Not just the pure data, but the context awareness. Okay. What? No point saying, do you need a mop? If I can see the room as well and go, you don't have a mop, but there's a towel over there. Shall I get that towel for you? Yeah. Okay.
Well, but then that's more in line with that whole kind of general intelligence thing rather than narrow, yes, no, algorithmic. Here's a list of possible outcomes. Let me feed it to you and you can say no, so I take you to the next one. It's going, well, actually, no, we've evolved past that.
Well, this is the thing. This blew my mind a couple of years ago when I realized that, like, the AlphaGo software that they developed, the way that they train it on games, when they want to teach it to play games and get better at games, they just show it the video of people playing the games and allow it to make a choice. Or itself playing the game. So whatever it might be, like Space Invaders. And they don't give it any information. They just let it watch. And, so to begin with, they don't move their dude and it gets shot. And so that gets a negative reinforcement. It plays the next game and it goes, okay, I'll move to the right. Well, that did a bit better. All right, I'll move to the right again. So it moves to the right, it gets shot in the corner. So then it moves back. And over time, it just from watching the video learns. So the amount of content that's been uploaded to YouTube, if you want to train general AI on, be like a person.
Yeah.
Just watch these people in the situations they're in and what's funny. And you give it a little bit of support, like, yeah, that was a funny thing. Okay, I've seen that a million times on this. I know what funny is now.
Yeah.
You get in that general intelligence.
Yeah, we kind of go, it's learned behavior, but it's just content and feed. Yeah, so that kind of ping pong thing that you mentioned earlier. So I watched that video too, and what was interesting about it, and it makes a whole bunch of logical sense. Yeah. So as a human, when I played it for 5 minutes. I really suck at it. I stop. And then I come back and maybe play it for another 5 minutes. I still suck at it and I stop. And then over time I evolve, yeah? And then, so this thing was all about, well, this kind of went on for, 3 days straight.
Yeah, and played a million games.
Yeah. And it didn't get tired and you didn't get bored. I didn't think this sucks.
Yeah.
And it just kept doing. And then it got to a place where it goes, well, these are all the possible outcomes. If this happens in the ball's over here on the screen, this is most likely what's going to happen. So I'm going to be pre-positioned. And you go, well, it makes a whole lot of sense when you explain things that way, yeah?
Yeah, this
is just learning. If you can keep watching and taking in the data, filing the data away.
Learning at a great scale. That's really what's happening. I was having a chat with a friend the other day about this and trying to, get an understanding of whether we think that's real learning. And my opinion is it is real learning. It's the same thing that we do. But like you say, if we sat there for a million game time, if we could do that and stay focused that whole time, we'd be the best player on the planet.
Yeah. So you play chess?
Little.
Yeah. So I used to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it was a way to kind of just you can't think anything else. If you're playing, you're playing. There's nothing else coming into your head. You're just doing that. But then the realization was the only way to really get really good at this game is you just understand and pre-memorize a whole bunch of preset moves. Mm-hmm. So if you can memorize a whole bunch of preset moves for the first 20 moves of the game,
you'll be good. Against most people, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
You didn't try the remote anal beads approach, did you?
No, go on.
I don't know. I just saw this on Twitter the other day.
Yeah, the obvious thing is remote anal beads. Do you really want to explore this? But then it could be kind of something completely different to what I'm thinking.
Look, I honestly don't know if this was a true story or if this was just a bullshit story that blew up. But is it Magnus Carlsen's the chess champion at the moment? Either him or some dude who beat him the other day. They're claiming that the guy has been using anal beads, which are remote controlled via Bluetooth, and someone's in the crowd feeding him answers. Like this bead vibrates. And
I
this
reckon that shit, eh?
I reckon it should, but it blew up, man. It blew up to such an extent that I thought, maybe it's not shit. Maybe that's what. Maybe this is a real story, but I'm like, it can't be a real story. I'm not going to waste time investing to read it. But if someone out there tell me, is it a real story or not?
But isn't it interesting now? We just don't take content on face value anymore.
It could work, couldn't it? Like if you're going to cheat, how else are you going to cheat? It's a good way to cheat at chess.
Yeah, it's just,
No,
yeah,
people aren't scanning your butt. Like, well, maybe they do now. They're like, they have a metal sensor in the chair. Get out, you're cheating. But if they didn't, you could get away with that for years.
Yeah, just the classiness of it, eh? What do you do for work, chess? Is that where you got to spread your cheeks before you walk into the room? Because, there was some dude that spoiled it for the rest of you.
Took all the fun out of chess.
But, yeah. Anyways, we're meant to talk about something.
Yeah, I don't know what. I had some ideas written on the board over there. I was thinking we could talk about. We've already talked about some of them. AI,
we have started.
Cost of inflation,
right?
All those sorts of things.
Inflation, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just on that topic of the chess and cheating, what's his name? Dana White, the UFC guy.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's a really, really high level blackjack player. And has been banned from a couple of casinos. He counts cards or something. He's got some technique.
Okay.
Yeah, and apparently he's really good at it. And they're like, "No, Dana, you can't play here anymore."
Did you ever try and learn the system? Did
card counting?
The one. What do they call it? The 1-0. minus 1-0.
They're above 10. You take out of 1. If they're below 10, you take 1 off.
But how strong would it be for the memory, though? Yeah, you kind of go, well, if you can actually embed one of those systems in your head, there's so many different things you could use it for.
That's it. If you commit to it.
Yeah.
If you some people, Ed's a good example of this.
Yeah.
Ed has a confident brain when it comes to tackling a problem.
Yes.
Like you say to Ed, what's 113 times 75? And I'm like, I'm not even going to try because I'm probably going to get it wrong. It'll take me forever. Give me a pen and paper. But Ed'll go, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And he'll probably get it pretty right.
He's got a bit of an idyllic memories kind of thing happening too, though, hasn't he? Because his ability to recall stuff, facts and figures is pretty second to none, I would have thought.
Yeah, but I don't Google him to like make sure that he's right. So
Yeah.
I've got another friend, like this really good friend of mine, but I've learned that he can be lethal. He's the kind of guy that could wind up getting you killed because he's so convincing when he tells you something. And so he'll tell you some random fact and you're like, wow, that's got to be it. That's 100% got to be it because I believe that. The way, and then a couple of these things I've Googled, I'm like, he's got no fucking idea. That's completely wrong. But I totally bought it because it was sold so convincingly.
It's all about the delivery.
Yeah.
It's all about. I take that about Ed. But he's very fact based. What I've noticed is he just consumes stuff, and I'd love to have a memory like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because particularly when you're very varied in your interests and stuff that you like to know about. You sometimes then reflect back and go, "Oh, is my facts actually correct?" Because if I want to stand by the statement, I don't want to be that guy that's.
I know that mine aren't. I'm like a dartboard. If the fact is there in the middle, then I'm kind of I'm in this zone around here. I'm not too far off.
Yeah,
but
you've got the right direction. The arrow is heading in the right direction.
Yeah, the Franco-Prussian War might have been 1868 or 1870. It was around there back then.
Yeah. I get that. Oh.
Yeah. What are we going to talk about? Don't know. Hadn't really organised any topics other than those.
No, and then I suppose I'm kind of waiting for us to get into a topic and not realising that we've spent a whole bunch of time talking about a bunch of different things anyways.
Yeah, that's the way it usually rolls on here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you asked that. A couple of the people I've had on already have come with the same question. They're like, I'll come on and do the podcast with you, but what are we going to talk about? And I was like, nothing. Whatever you want to talk about. If you want a topic, talk about it. If you don't.
Let me throw one past you, which is something that I'm spending a bit of time thinking about at the moment. Yeah?
Sure.
So being in that kind of mid-40s bracket at the moment, quite relevant to us because, I suppose my thought process goes, well, if I am trying to think through something about the future, I've got to put a time overlay because it's got to be, how is it relevant to us? Because I could be.
Is it in the next 30 years, or I'm probably not doing it?
Well, that's exactly it. Is it gonna be a problem for me in 2 years' time? Yeah. Is it gonna be a problem for me in 10 years' time?
Can I do this thing sitting down?
Yeah, all those sorts of things. Yeah. So one of the things that's going at the moment is there's a change in season. Yeah. So we've had some fantastic times and we had huge amounts of growth and we felt really, really wealthy because you buy a property when we did and all of a sudden it's worth a gazillion more and you go, well, shucks, I haven't done anything and I feel pretty all right and pretty secure and pretty comfortable. But all that seems to be changing and we've had the benefit of very low interest rates and it's really benefited us.
Yeah.
But there's a generation that we're all connected to that's coming through that haven't had that benefit.
No.
They bought at the peak.
Yeah.
There's the whole kind of double income to support the mortgage, young family, and got in when interest rates were 2.5%, and now interest rates
are on the way up.
4.5%, and next thing they'll be 5.5%. I think they're there now. But people aren't bracing for that kind of 7.5%, 8%.
I'm surprised here that we haven't seen more of a sell-off in investment and rental property. So I thought there would have been a few more people who by now would have gone, ooh, I'm feeling the pinch. I want to get out.
So then you go, who owns those properties at the moment? The predominant ownership base is within the baby boomers, yeah?
Have to be.
So the baby boomers have kind of baby boomed in better health than they thought they would.
Yeah.
So they're kind of that 65, 70, 75. And traditionally, we were kind of trained to believe, retire at 65, get 5 years worth of travel, get 5 years worth of, 70, 75, starting to really settle down and, get a single level house with low maintenance, brick and tile and all that sort of stuff. But at 75, you're highly functional and you're still doing stuff that you were when you were 60 now, care of health services and all that sort of stuff. But what I'm observing is these guys are going, hey, we needed more money because we were so much more healthier and able and we wanted to do more stuff. And there we thought, let's let ourselves be invested, let the money grow, and that will give us a better outcome in true retirement when we need it. But now things are turning a wee bit and their money's still tied up. And whether it be properties or the stock market sinking and and so on. They're going, well, shit, how do I exit this now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're the ones that are holding the property. So I'd suspect that we should start seeing the boomers liquidate some of their position, and some of the position they'll keep to pass on to their sons, their daughters, their grandkids, or whatever it be. But a portion of that they will need.
Because they're living longer, they're still able-bodied, they want to do more things, they got things they can spend their money on.
I want to go on a holiday, A holiday's not going to cost you $2,000 anymore, that's a 30 grand affair. So I need to liquidate a property to enjoy some of the benefits of my work and my investments. I was letting it ride because things were growing and it felt really wrong to pull my money out while it was still doubling. But then all of a sudden, kind of tables turn. Well, not tables turn. The wind's changed and things aren't growing as aggressively.
Yeah, I see the Dow's down again at the moment, down under 29,000, is it?
Yeah, she's hurting out there at the moment. But we don't. But the and this is the human greed thing, and I'm in that greed. Yeah, we go, well, it's gonna fall, it's gonna pause, it's gonna swing back. Yeah, it's gonna swing back. Fuck, it's not swinging back. No, tomorrow. But yeah, it seems like there's a whole bunch of us caught up in that.
Yeah, I think so.
But what's got to be interesting is, what's coming upon all of us into the next year, if not already now. We're hearing about a whole bunch of changes happening out of the tech sector in the US, and you kind of go, well, tech sector in the US is
an indicator.
And it's a globalized tech sector,
yeah.
Because we all use Google, we all use Facebook, we all use what else?
Twitter,
all the SaaS stuff that we use.
Yeah.
So it's all connected. Their footprints all over the world, and if it shrinks over there, it's going to shrink over here. So then they cut back.
That's interesting. I wonder what area of it is shrinking for them. Are they shrinking in their research and design areas? Are they shrinking in their middle management areas? Are they just tightening that up because they've been able to have largesse and now they're wanting to tighten it up? Because you kind of think the last couple of years must have been great for those guys. So many people got like Zoom and that people working from home, adopting technology, whole heap of products coming out to enable you to do more online, like even the gym, Les Mills. All online courses you can buy now rather than going to the gym. You kind of feel like they would have actually grown in that period.
So what I'm reading out of the tech sector is there's a decline in growth, yeah? So it's because the valuation is built on growth, because it's just all so overvalued. They're saying, okay, well, for what my share price is worth today, people are willing to pay me. Willing to pay that share price 200 times. In Tesla's case, I think it got up to 200 times earnings. So you go, well, this company is essentially 200 times better than what I'm seeing today.
Yeah,
that's the future I'm buying. But now we're kind of going, well, actually, no. On the basis of that valuation, what we're saying is Ford, GM, a whole bunch of other car companies combined together, Tesla's a better company.
Yeah.
You go, well, actually, no, all these other guys are catching up and they're now actually chewing into that electric vehicle space. So now Tesla will have to share that space. So that first mover advantage is going to be that's just one company.
Yeah. That's an interesting topic, though. Just that one there.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of an advantage Tesla have, just for having those couple of years of data collection from all of their cars already, in terms of being the base to drive their AI, and let it grow and learn upon that. Like how long is it going to take Ford to have their driverless cars out there in action to gather enough information to sort of get to that level of learning? I wonder if they...
Yeah, but see, whereas I see Google as being the holy grail of what is the future of AI, yeah? They are the collection of data and the sources of data they have collected and what they're processing. So they're taking all the visual stuff with all the graphics that are loaded and some of the smart stuff that they've managed to do with that. Now they've taken all the location data and the phone movement data. They've got pots of these searches and outcomes to searches. All belongs to them. So folks like whether it be Tesla or I was talking to someone else saying, okay, well, where do you buy your data from? Well, Biometrics. Yeah, so voice biometrics. So the conversation went, hey, this is a really great tool. Yeah, and fantastic. They've done a really, really good job. What this is all about is reducing the amount of time you spend authenticating a user so that you can kind of proceed to service delivery. So web, one of the issues that they're facing at the moment is people keep losing their passwords and so on. So voice biometrics is our means of authenticating, or an alternate means of authenticating. So then the conversation went, what's the voice speech analytics engine that you are using in order to authenticate? And eventually got to, we've got our own engine. We've built a whole bunch of algorithms to give us at least a 64-point match. But then we do rely on Google. Yeah. And then you go, I'm not surprised to hear that because you can't.
They've got a wealth of information.
You've got a wealth of information. It's been built over time, and they've built such sophisticated APIs. So as a developer, you go, well, shucks, I don't have the data pot. I don't have the analytics engine. And they've already built an API for me. So why would I focus on all of that? I'm just going to build the application layer. And tap in. So that's where I think, like the future of AI is really going to be driven
by Google.
Google. Your users are going to be your Teslas and so on. Yes. But then if they're only a user, what's stopping Porsche? So
purchasing that from Google.
And whether it be Porsche or Audi or whoever, the technology or the software layer is the same, whether it's a Q7, Q3, Q5, the way it takes all those inputs from road conditions and all that. It's exactly the same input. It's just the size of the vehicle. So they've already got their fleet and their target audience and all that sort of stuff pre-marketed to. Whereas Tesla's coming in going, I've got the Model 3 because you don't look like a $200,000 buyer. You look like a $60,000 buyer.
True,
Whereas, that sporty, I want you to have insane mode. $200,000 buyer. He's going, oh, shit, why would I buy a Tesla? I'd go buy a Porsche Taycan.
And get the same AI ability in it now.
Beautiful build quality. So I think that market's now starting to find its place. But then I think what's going to happen with that market is we're going to go through a slowdown, and that slowdown's going to be infrastructure-led, like
recharging stations.
So I read an article like in Remmers. It's not a high concentration of electric vehicles, but they're having grid issues because people are going home in the evening and all parking up, and it's such an old grid.
California's the same, where they're saying, everyone buy an electric vehicle, or don't plug your vehicles in. It's too hot. The air conditioning won't run if you plug your vehicles in to charge.
There's a bloody energy crisis. It's part of the electric vehicle. But then we've got to fire up the coal stations in order to charge our electric vehicles. So it should be interesting the direction that takes. Because you've got Toyota that's gone the whole hydrogen route. And then you go, well, what's actually a hydrogen vehicle? A hydrogen vehicle is where I'm processing LPG to make hydrogen cells so I'm using natural gas. No, natural gas.
Well, you are. And I guess unless you find an effective way to use solar or nuclear and to use electrolysis and just generate hydrogen off water. And then you just separate it and you've got oxygen coming off and hydrogen coming off, and there's your hydrogen source.
So my bet is I think we're going to be embarking the next 20 years off nuclear.
We've got to be going back to nuclear.
It's abundant. It's reasonably safe. We've had a couple of disasters, but then if you can look to coal power plants and other sources of power, and there's been disasters in those too.
Exactly.
So
it's got to go. And Germany's doing it now. Germany's done the flip now. They've moved nuclear onto the green energy source now because they're having their energy crisis.
And they're in a rush to do a whole bunch of restarts at the moment, aren't they? They're kind of going, first they laughed at Trump for saying, hey.
For pointing it out.
You may not have your energy shit under control.
You guys are heavily dependent on that dude over there. I can see that. Can you see that? You can't see that. Just laugh at me. That's okay.
I don't think you like that dude, but you're heavily dependent on him. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but if I were you, I'd maybe explore a few other things.
Apparently there's a whole heap of reselling ongoing through India now.
India and China, They're kind of going, well, you're giving me 20% off book. Why wouldn't I not have to touch the stuff and pass it on? Hey, energy's been the source of a lot of crisis, yeah?
Energy is the key to everything.
So the economies have kind of discovered that if you don't have your energy security...
You can't grow.
Well, not only... That's what pisses people off. That's when civil disobedience starts and so on.
Yeah.
So like Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they couldn't fill their gas tanks because they'd gone bankrupt.
Well, that's all, true. But they also had the preceding problem where they'd said, well, we're going green. We're not going to use fertilizers anymore. It's like, so we lost 30% of our crops.
Right. But do you know what the root cause of that was?
I don't know.
They didn't have money to buy fertilizer. So they were trying to do their foreign exchange management by going, well, we need to become a lot more self-reliant.
This will be our
rather than importing all our stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go, oh, well, we need to spin this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the fact that we actually can't really afford to buy stuff overseas anymore, and we need to educate people into buying locally and sustaining ourselves because we don't produce enough to sell.
Yeah.
So our foreign reserves are in quite an imbalance. So then they went, we're going to go organic and go self-sustained farming. Oh shit, we can't feed our people.
Yeah.
Nightmare. Because I was reading population growth. What's if you were to say, well, there's been some exponential growth in population. What are some of the things that have been responsible for it? And one of the commentary goes, well, actually, nitrogen fertilizer is one of the things we've been able to produce more food, and therefore, you kind of go, actually, nitrogen's been, the fertilizer business has had a lot to answer for.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of crises coming up around fertilizer production.
Yeah.
It might be even the potassium it might be that you want for growing a lot of crops as well. There's limits to where we've got that readily available. And so, if you get yourself into a position where 10 years in the future, you're like, we just can't generate the amount of fertilizer we want to generate. That's a real problem. Whether you like the way it's used and the problems it causes, we use it to make food for people.
Well, but the problem is we've got a problem coming upon us, possibly not us, where New Zealand, we're quite lucky. We're isolated from the rest of the world, and we have got a certain level of self-sustaining existence. So we're lucky in that sense. But like Russia's been quite responsible for the distribution of fertilizer into Europe. So growing all that food, they've needed fertilizer. So there's a significant food shortage, which is now on its way.
Yeah,
and they're saying already there, and we're kind of calling it inflation, but this is also becoming a supply-led inflation.
Yeah,
it's going, well, prices are going up because there's an issue with supply here. Whereas, traditionally what we've deemed inflation is demand-led.
Yeah.
More people want to buy the damn thing.
So we'll put the prices up.
So let's put the price up. Well, they're saying, well, no, it's not that more people want to buy it. It's just
less of
supply.
it. Yeah.
So that's pushing the price up. So that whole fertilizer business out of Russia is causing significant issues and also foreseeable into the next 12, 24 months because there isn't a replacement source of nourishment to grow shit. And
there's the two-pronged issue there. You've got that lack of supply of the fertilizer, but then you've got the Ukraine to a large extent, this great food bowl, which would normally be pumping out product, going, well, we're not growing any products at the moment, we're getting shot at.
But then this is where I went kind of seeking for, okay, let me understand Russia and what's happening over here. Yeah? Sorry, kind of swinging back. But their whole thing was, okay, well, hey, Western world, yes, we've got an ideology that doesn't suit your narrative, and it's not the same as your ideology, but that doesn't make us wrong. And, our history extends back several thousand years, whereas America, you're dictating terms to us, and you don't really have a history. And you are getting us to question our ideology. So putting that aside, the whole Putin speech went along the lines of, we produce all this stuff. We have all this commodity that the rest of the world has enjoyed and paid us peanuts for.
Yeah.
And they've had this amazing standard of living, yet they look upon us and laugh upon us for being poor or of a different belief system or whatever it is. And we have, in all these years, supported you in creating such a great lifestyle, all this food abundance and all this petrol that you chuck into your big 6-litre gas guzzlers and drive around like you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. But it's all been on our backs, and we haven't seen anything for it. So all we want is fair value.
Yeah.
It sort of makes sense when you hear it that way, yeah?
Yeah.
You kind of go, well, okay, I get your point here.
Completely. And this is a thing that I struggle with too, is that Russia is far more west than it is anything else. I don't know why the Western world hasn't just said, well, why don't we just try to adopt Russia into the West? You know, America's real challenge of the future isn't with Russia, it's with China. You know, an Eastern growing superpower. Russia's a declining superpower. They're not the USSR anymore. They're Russia. They punch above their weight. You're right. They hold a lot of people by the balls because of the products they produce.
Yeah.
But so wouldn't the strategic policy have been, you know what? We'll stay out of Ukraine and we'll just trade with you more and more and more, and make you more Western and get you tight with us and stop making you the bogeyman. You know?
Yeah, but that was a bit of Trumpism at play there. Yeah, Trump was going, well, actually, our biggest threat in our doorsteps is China, not Russia. But we can't have two enemies at the same time.
Yeah,
yeah. So we need to protect our borders, and China's our biggest threat. So we need to actually maybe get a bit more supportive.
Yeah,
of Russia.
I agree with the logic there. Strategically, Russia's demonstrating it now in this stoush with the Ukraine. They're not the global superpower. They didn't just roll through the Ukraine. You know, they haven't demonstrated great military power there up against a what would you call it, a partial NATO force. You know, it's American dollars and NATO dollars going into the Ukraine. That's why the Ukraine is still in the fight and doing well at the moment. It's effectively NATO in there by proxy.
Yeah.
But
it's all on lent money, you realise, eh?
Yeah.
Which I didn't know until, you know, like you do a bit of researching and you go, oh, actually, there's all this weaponry and all that. And then there was another article that kind of went alongside it, which is, said, well, actually, was it, the UK went through the same thing, or,
during the war, World War II.
During World War II, and they've just finally paid their debt off
the Ukraine
to Europe.
The Ukraine are financially rooted. They are. They have just been taking billion after billion hand over fist. How are they going to pay it back? Even if you like, people are saying, "Oh, the Ukraine's beating Russia." It's like, well, yeah, except that Russia's losing some dudes and some equipment, but they're losing them in the Ukraine. There's no one in Russia really being bombed and shelled, and Ukraine is just being wasted.
Yeah, whereas like the little bit of reading I'm doing is suggesting to me that the war's just a front for Russia because Russia's winning the economic and the financial warfare.
So
they're kind of going, hey, look at this hand. We've got this conflict with Ukraine, and you've put sanctions in. Oh, by the way, we've still got a way to trade. The ruble is stronger today. We're still selling all the stuff we used to sell before, but because you guys have been choking us, we're not selling to you. But guess what? Some of the developing nations are doing rather well out of all of this.
Yeah.
And our foreign reserves in US dollars has shrunk considerably. So you can put sanctions all you want. It's not going to hurt us like it would have 5 years ago when we owned a whole bunch of USD. We're going, well, our USD holding's pretty low at the moment.
Yeah.
And by the way, people are paying us in rubles, and we're buying yen. And Iran's actually, they're nice people. We got we thought they were real shits, but they're okay. And then all of a sudden, BRICS is extending. So you got you got your Brazil, you got your Russia, you got your India. India's sitting in the middle, going, go half that way, or we'll be okay in the middle. They just seem to be taking from both sides, yeah?
It feels like strategically the US and Europe have made a big mistake here. Look long term at it for exactly those.
Yeah, but they're too clever. So then you go to what game?
This is what I'm beginning to question and wonder: is this just a money making opportunity in the Ukraine? It's like, well, Biden's pumping billions in to Zelensky. They're going somewhere. Remember was it Iraq when Donald Rumsfeld said there's about $3 trillion we can't find? Like, that was all that money we gave. We just can't find it. And what the fuck happened to that?
Yeah.
Where did that $3 trillion go? Did we ever find it? Did we ever get it back?
And but you know what? The billionaire list has grown significantly.
Yeah.
Let's look over there.
Yeah, no. Don't look there. Don't look there. So that's I'm thinking, look, maybe this is just a Raytheon and BlackRock and whoever. They're all just in there going, well, look, let's just have a little proxy war in the Ukraine.
Yeah, but unfortunately, isn't it sad that this is what it's come down to? Because you're right. It is a capitalist-led alt motive at play. We don't know what it is, but someone is actually doing quite well out of all of this.
Someone's banking some money here.
Yeah. And, well, like if me and you were banking some, we'd kind of go, hey, it's all real.
We rationalise it. We justify it.
It's a real problem, and we need to do what we need to do over here to support the good people of Ukraine.
Yeah.
But I'm not making money. You're not making money.
Look, this is the other thing, and this will probably get this video taken off YouTube, is that
Sorry.
I don't, no, but I really don't think that we're necessarily helping the Ukraine. As I say, what we are doing by giving all this money to them right now is we are extending the damage over the course of a year that's being done to that country. Now, if it all stops tomorrow and Putin says, okay, I'm going home, then you might go, okay, it was justifiable. It turned out net positive for the Ukraine. Or you could say, if we didn't get into that stoush, if we didn't support them and they probably just backed out, Ukraine would be as it was.
Yeah, so, like, once again, you kind of go, am I mad in having a view on this?
Which is different to the mainstream.
Yeah. So then, you're constantly challenging your thinking for having this view, which doesn't really kind of gel with mainstream. And then where this was going at was, you go, well, why didn't Putin just do what the US does, which is go and just blast shell? Right? Why put people in there? He goes, well, because I don't want to destroy that city.
Yeah.
I want to take that city and get control of the city, and a broken city is no good to anyone because you've got to spend a whole lot of money building it. So that's why you go around.
There was a whole lot of that at the start where they were surprised. They're like, why didn't they blow that up? Why didn't they destroy that? Because they didn't want to. This is, John Mearsheimer is international relations guy. You'd love him. I think you'd really enjoy him. He's a realist.
Yeah.
He said right from the outset, he said, if Putin goes in there, it'll be just to say, to push back and just to say, just get out of the Ukraine NATO. And if you do that,
his terms of engagement, his terms of disengagement have not changed as far as I know. He's saying, you know what, these are four things. I want commitment that you're not going to join NATO. Zelensky, I want you to step down because, you just haven't shown good character or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can't remember the rest, but he was quite simple and concise, saying, "Hey, these are the things that we need, and as long as you can commit to these, we can stop this today."
Yeah.
Then you go, well, shucks, the whole cost of all of this, if it stops today, there's a bunch of people that may not be able to cash out to the fullest extent. So there's no reason or motivation to cash out to stop it. Yeah.
Well, Raytheon, I saw yesterday, just received $1 billion contract to go and build hypersonic missiles. And you could imagine that right now is probably a good time to be pushing for that sale. Look what's going on over there. It's probably good if you give us some money to make these new missiles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, put some money into the R&D fund, and then we'll sell it back to you.
Yeah.
But let's people fund it first. So it's it should be interesting how all that pans out.
Yeah, it will be.
But it's interesting also being based in New Zealand. We can have
looking
a view, because you kind of go, oh, there's too much sea, man. Well, those ships can't travel this far. They'll lose interest before they get. So there's that security that we have. I think that leaves us as observers.
Yes, we're lucky. At this stage, we're lucky to observe. You're right.
Yeah.
I do wonder, though, in, say, 30 years' time, so maybe America and EU's weaken themselves a bit by spending all this time in Russia, and then China says, okay, it's time for us to make our move now, and we'd like to be the global power, so we're going to expand out. Like they just put a base in, is it Tonga?
Oh, China. Yeah, China. Yeah. I think Tonga signed to that little... what do they do? They went knocking around the Pacific neighbours. So that was an interesting. I can't remember the guy's name. I'm trying to recall, but he said, we've had a period where we've only had one superpower, and that's been the US for a long time, but we're now into a new kind of world domination, and I just don't even want to mention the Great Reset or WEF or any of them, but that agenda's been spoilt. Because you've got the Asia region, you've got a superpower in China, you've got the European region, which is now being split out, and you've got Russia that's kind of shown its hands saying, hey, we actually supply a lot of resource and a lot of commodity, and the upcoming age is going to be a commodity-driven age. It's not like, we've just lived through a tech-driven age where, your social platforms and hosted this, hosted that, web app this, web app that, have kind of dominated, and you go, well, what's real about that? No. Then you go, well, Right. So I need to plant food and I need some
Yeah.
fertilizer to make that grow. Now that's pretty tangible, yeah? And Russia's going, well, we got that tangible
We've
stuff.
got that stuff under control.
Yeah, we got that stuff. So it's our turn. So then I can't recall this guy's name, but he was saying, okay, well, we're embarking into a tri-power world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So US is not going to disappear. It's done too much. It is very powerful. It is still the most powerful military in the world. The issue that you have is there's a systemic issue of capitalization. It's all about capitalist-led outcomes. So it's not driven by people and, what do we need to deliver our people? It's about, well, how can we profit?
Yeah.
And that's just signs of what you'd call mature Rome. Rome was not about the Romans anymore. It was about the rich, powerful people that ran it. So that's where the US is at the moment. But then China's come up. Because if you think about China, from 1980s, it was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah? Nobody knew of China, really. It was,
No,
somewhere over there, and they did some stuff, and there's a whole lot of poverty.
the world was a lot smaller then.
Yeah. So 80s to now, that's
Bigger
about
then.
40 years, yeah?
Yeah.
And they've gone from nothing to a superpower.
And this is the thing, because the US decided, well, we're going to trade with China. We're going to open up and trade with China, and so they become dependent on them. And then China could grow because of that globally. Australia, we tried trade with Australia, we trade with New Zealand, and so they have grown. And now it's like, oh shit, we let that genie out of that bottle. That kid's grown up. They're a big teenager now. We can't actually tell them to shut up anymore. Like, they're too big. They're not that little kid anymore.
Well, no, because and they've got their own mind. Whereas at one stage when we first started doing commerce with them, the terms of trades were on our terms because they needed something we had, and that was the source of essentially cheap labor, and conditions of environment and all those sorts of things weren't a consideration. So you could get stuff done reasonably cost effectively, not just on the labor front. And then that labor allowed us to build a whole bunch of stuff. And then they started using tech into it too. So it's not only about people and, a whole bunch of cheap hours to produce stuff. Now they could actually apply technology and clean room processing and all that sort of stuff. And they could still do it cheaper than us. And then we've got this moment of conflict now, and we're going, oh, well, shucks, we've got some real supply chain issues because we're kind of caught to their needs and their demands, and we can't get our iPhones.
Heavily dependent. Like you say, Russia's doing a lot of that commodity and food production and natural resource sort of production.
Yeah.
China's doing a lot of technology production, really.
Yeah.
Now, in this room here, so much of the electronics equipment here came in 2 weeks' time from China.
It's incredible. Hey, you know what? So during COVID, the time to receive stuff was just crazy. Have you noticed recently you can order something and it will arrive within 2 to 3 weeks?
Yes, it's insane sometimes.
It's fantastic. So then you go, well, now your traditional brick and mortars, your JB Hi-Fis and all of them are going to struggle a wee bit.
Yeah. There used to be, I'll pay the price excess at the local supplier because I can get it today, versus now, if I'm prepared to wait a week, I can get it at a fifth of the price.
Have you noticed that they're doing some smart consolidation? So you'd order multiple things over 3 days or whatever.
Combined express delivery.
And then all of a sudden there'd be some combination from different stores.
Yeah.
So, they'd 3 different stores you bought stuff over 2 days or 3 days or whatever, but they arrive
packaged together and
quicker.
Yep. So I got AliExpress. You can actually track your stuff. You track your products coming in. They've got an in-country Chinese distribution center just before it hits their customs and leaves.
Yeah.
And then over here, they seem to have a similar sort of thing, because I've seen some things happen with products where they get to this point and then suddenly it becomes, you're going to benefit from combined delivery. And that's right. These guys have got together and said, look, if we send everything here and it's going to the same destination, pack it together.
So that's moved quite quickly, eh?
Yeah.
So, COVID and pre-COVID and all that sort of stuff, it was all taking ages. And then all of a sudden...
But that was the growth phase. That was because the impetus was there. It's like, shit, everyone's at home with a computer buying online. All this money's coming in. Shit, we better invest in this and improve these processes.
But we can't do that over here.
No, yeah. Well, it's a scale thing, isn't it? It's that thing. You've got cheap resources. You've got the scale to actually say we can do.
Well, technology is compensating for scale now. Technology is kind of evening out scale.
Yes, it is. But there's still here. They've actually got the scale of. These guys will be saying, we can fill a tanker tomorrow with product. We've got enough product to send that it makes it cost efficient to book that tanker. Whereas the JB Hi-Fis are like, fuck, we need to team up with Dick Smith and the warehouse and someone else to get enough scale to be able to compete at that level.
So we are supplying some Christmas products into JB Hi-Fi on behalf of a American company that's subbed out to an Australian company, and the Australian company subbing out to my company. Yeah. So 6 weeks
from the States
to get a 40-foot 40-foot container from Sydney to our warehouse to D-van and get delivered out to 6 weeks. It used to be 3 weeks.
Wow.
So 3 weeks, warehouse in Sydney could get a container. I think the on-water time is only 3 days. Yeah, but generally they go a week on either side. 6 weeks. It's just insane. So they were going, our cost FedEx is too expensive. So what they were doing was, they'd FedEx big cartons to stores, whereas now what they want to do is put all of these on pallets and put 20 of these pallets into a 20-foot container, or 40 of these pallets into a 40-foot container, land it over here, and then we unpack it and
distribute yourself
and get it out to your various JB Hi-Fi stores. But that whole 6 weeks is just insane. You can get something across from China to New Zealand in the same amount of time. And from Port Sydney.
And you can do that as an individual purchasing one item. That's the crazy thing.
Well, hey, that FedEx service is just mind-blowing. You can get FedEx from Sydney to someone's house, your house over here, overnight. So, you place an order, and it's not unreasonable. Price was not unreasonable. I can get, so we had a customer that was selling, it was called type of buns, and they did a really amazing social campaign, got 2-minute video segments, and then they had 30-second segments and 20-second segments that made just using kind of what you call generic actors in Aussie somewhere. So for $4,000, they had a whole social campaign put together. So, and they'd just buy a bunch of things and essentially put it into a pretty box and put the advert up. And they'd sell like 250, 300 units in a couple of days. Good margin too. But it was just interesting. So they'd sell this online. We would then get those parcels from Auckland to Sydney or US quicker using your FedEx. Then we can get NZ Post to get parcels around it. So
I was buying kit for this room, bits and pieces, like USB cables with different ends and things like that, and little HDMI converters, all that sort of stuff. And I bought something online in New Zealand, and I waited like 2 weeks for that to turn up, and it had to come across town. Well, at least that's what the expectation was, that it's just coming across town. Now they're probably back ending it and just waiting until they've got 10 orders, and then they're going on AliExpress and they're buying 10 units, and so it's actually coming across on the same boat from China.
Possibly. There's a whole bunch of that drop shipping kind of caper happening, but over here, freight services is in a bit of disarray. And then the excuses that are being used is, hey, COVID has meant that drivers are off sick and all that sort of stuff. But they're having so this is the other part of me. I've got a distribution company too, so you get to live the frustration of getting last mile deliveries.
Remember, didn't we talk about this years ago that Uber should do that? Like, you should just have the Uber ride sharing of distribution. So you have your distribution centers, just Uber drivers turn up, and you for $6 they take the parcel and do that kind of thing.
We just don't have the saturation in New Zealand, So like, go back to this the Chinese WeChat app thing, So talking to this young person who was rather excited about the technology that they have available to them. They're going, well, like you have this apartment building, and in this apartment building you've got potentially 300 dwellings, and therefore 600 and then you've got a food hall underneath it, and the food hall sells all sorts of food, but it doesn't have anywhere to sit. So people use their apps and they order the food.
And everyone's got this app in the apartment.
so they've got localized apps to order from kind of that food complex, and so they've got these small hole in the walls that are just churning over food that is unimaginable by a restaurant in New Zealand. They don't need to worry about service and pouring water for the guest or anything of that sort. This is just kitchen just going
put it into boxes and send it out.
And so if you get that whole Uber set up over there, the probability of it being economically feasible to do delivery, whereas over here, you've got a delivery and you get $6. Well, I know it's a lot more than $6 now, though, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I haven't used it, but I just remember that idea. A couple of years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, Dan. I was saying, because we were struggling with distribution companies for, like Renee with her business, the kombucha, and getting just the prices to send small amounts. And it's just going, surely Uber's got to be doing this, or someone's got to be doing this as an Uber type model, where you just say, hey, look, 17-year-old kid who's got an old shitty car for $4, pick this up and take it over there. If you come back